It was close. Can I push this?
Guy knows to turn it on.
Any senators wishing to vote or change their votes? If not, the amendment number 34 by Senator Nelson from Florida passes 96-1. And the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I may proceed for 10 minutes as if we were in morning business.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to act as the acting presiding officer, as my colleagues across the aisle are boarding buses and leaving town, and I appreciate very much your courtesy. Mr. President, I rise today to honor the hard work and the dedication of our men and women in the United States Army and all branches of service. But just a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of attending the uncasing ceremony at Fort Riley, Kansas. It was an honor to me. For those who have not attended an uncasing ceremony, it symbolizes a homecoming, and certainly that was the case at Fort Riley. It signifies the presence of the command and the resumption of that command's authority, and it offers a time to reflect on the heroic efforts and the leadership and the men and women of the Big First. Since returning to Kansas in 2006, the 1st Infantry Division's headquarters deployed to Iraq. But this was not the first time the division has uncased its colors at Fort Riley. In fact, this was the 5th time in 55 years. During their time in Basra, Iraq, the men and women of the Big Red One assisted in completing many vital projects. Approximately 850 soldiers deployed from Fort Riley in February of last year. The division's efforts were supported by other services, obviously, and also government agencies. The mission was more offensive than defensive, a change for the men and women of the Big Red One. To quote Fort Riley's outstanding commanding general, Major General Vincent Brooks, quote, "The Big Red One, as U.S. Division South, was a trusted partner to the Iraqi security forces, to 9 U.S. provincial reconstruction teams led by the U.S. Department of State, with participants from other agencies of the U.S. government and to other U.S. forces in Iraq. The Big Red One ensured that the hard-earned stability emerging in Iraq would remain stable. Their success was our success." So the accomplishments of the Big Red One are numerous and merit the attention of my colleagues. The division assisted Iraqis in completing the Basra Children's Hospital, a cancer center noted as one of the most modern facilities in the Middle East. And I was fortunate to spend time after the ceremony with about 30 soldiers in the unit. One non-commissioned officer's experience in particular stood out. I asked all of them how many deployments that they had made to Iraq, or for that matter, Afghanistan, and the answer was 2 or 3 or 4. This non-commissioned officer had 5 deployments. And I asked him what on earth was wrong with the deployment situation in his case. He said, "Oh, no, I wanted to come back to my unit. I wanted to come back to the Big Red One. I wanted to come back to Iraq and continue the work that I thought was so important." And I asked him what the difference was. And he said, "Well, when I was here first in Basra, we lost 9 in our unit. 9 paid the ultimate sacrifice. And in this deployment, no shots were fired." If there ever was testimony from somebody in the front line, somebody who, obviously the NCOs do really run the Army, with all due respect to the officers, but this NCO officer pretty well summed it up. First deployment, 9 fatalities. Last deployment, no shots fired. I am truly grateful that all of the soldiers deployed from the Big Red One's division headquarters this time around returned safe. Mr. President, I submit General Brooks' full comments for the record. By the way, Mr. President, General Vincent Brooks, you remember that name, He will soon be receiving his third star. He will be reassigned to the Central Command. Anyone that knows General Brooks and his wife, Dr. Carol Brooks, is not surprised. This promotion in the new command comes as no surprise to anyone in the area, especially the people who served under General Brooks and has had the privilege of knowing him. Simply put, he is an inspirational leader with an outstanding record. From the Kansas congressional delegation, General, well done, sir. You will be missed, but our pride in your success and your future success and the job you have done and the job you will do make us all proud, pride that we all share. Mr. President, I would ask that the General's remarks be inserted in the record at this point, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Without objection, the remarks will be included.
Yeah, and you're going to need help to decipher it. This is why I have this gorgeous young lady to accompany me. You behave yourself. All right? Mr. President,
Senator from Kansas.
I notice the absence of a quorum, and I would note that there is an absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President,
The senator from Alabama.
I would ask that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, President Obama talked with the Chamber of Commerce yesterday. I think that was a good step, but talk and rhetoric are not policy and not action. It's reported that he received two applause lines. He got applause from two different lines in a 35-minute address, which is a bit unusual. It does appear that the President understands he has a serious problem with the job-creating community and is willing to at least meet with people, but the problem really is policy and action, and I'm disappointed that he has not gone further to deal in a realistic way with the job problems this nation has. He talked about lowering corporate taxes but not reducing the burden of government borne by these companies. In other words, he talked about lowering the rate through eliminating loopholes, and some of the loopholes, I'm sure, are not justified. Some of them may be very effective in helping us be competitive and create growth, but just eliminating those and making it appear that the corporate tax burden has been reduced. I talked to Chamber of Commerce and business people. What they tell me is that we're in a competitive world environment. A competitive world environment. And businesses decide where to make products and hire workers based on the cost of doing business in that area. And a CEO North America for an international company in my home state told me that he thought we were going to add 200 jobs at an Alabama plant that he oversees to make a chemical product, but his headquarter company in Europe said no, after considering taxes, we're not going to build that plant, that process in Alabama. It's going to be in a foreign country. In other words, they had won the competition on cost, but another country with lower tax rates on the corporations won the bid. So the idea that you can have a high tax rate is not good. We have the highest tax rate in the developed world. As soon as Japan brings theirs down, which they're planning to do, will be the highest corporate tax country in the world. This makes us less competitive, and it creates fewer jobs. Simply to eliminate loopholes and bring it down from 35 to the high 20s, as apparently is being discussed, does not reduce the burden of taxes on corporations. Many of our corporations are going to have a significant increase in their tax rates, and it'll make it less, they'll be less able to hire workers. So this is a major issue that I think we've got to confront. It's a competitiveness issue. The President continued to talk, as he did in the State of the Union, about more investments spending. We don't have the money. We don't have the money to do more spending. And I'm disappointed that he has not begun to realize that the day is over that we can just waltz in with a lot of good ideas for new spending programs. And he continued to talk about expanding the role of bureaucracy in this recent speech yesterday in key industries at a time we need to streamline regulations that are killing jobs in America. And he did not call for a vigorous and realistic plan to reduce spending. So, Mr. President, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the President beginning to enter into a dialogue with the folks who create jobs. I'm not suggesting that we need to reduce corporate rates to be nice to corporations. I don't have any brief to bear to try to make it somehow easier for corporate execs to make big amounts of money. But what I do understand is if we overtax American corporations, they'll move other places. Canada is looking to reduce its corporate tax rate lower to 16%. So if we're at 35% and Canada goes to 16%, will that not be a factor in us losing jobs in competition with Canada? We've got to defend our interests. I see the distinguished majority leader. I know he's busy, and I would yield the floor.
Mr. President,
The majority leader.
I ask unanimous consent that we now proceed to a period of morning business. Senators allowed to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business day, it adjourn until 4 p.m. on Thursday, February 10th. Following the prayer and the pledge, the journal proceedings be approved to date. Morning hour be deemed expired. The time for the two leaders be reserved for the use later in the day. And following any leader remarks, the Senate proceed to a period of morning business. The senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Mr. President, there will be no roll call votes during Thursday's session of the Senate. We hope to clear the trade assistance adjustment legislation on Thursday. Senators should expect the next roll call votes to be on 5:30 p.m. on Monday. We'll have more than one vote on that evening, February 14th, Valentine's Day. That vote could be on a judicial nomination, and we will also have some amendments to vote on the FAA authorization. If there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask we adjourn under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until 4 p.m. on February 10th.
So the Senate has wrapped up legislative work for the day. They will not be in session tomorrow. They will return